Welcome to Cheating Tales Diary. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story. Evening had settled over New York City. Dark clouds loomed, and a light drizzle tapped against the expansive glass windows of Russell Harmon's penthouse. He stood there, a glass of bourbon in one hand, a remote in the other, though the TV remained off. Before him stretched the city lights, appearing as deceptive as they were beautiful. A city he had devoted 2 decades of his life to, only to feel mocked by it now. The betrayal he faced wasn't from adversaries, but from within his own home. Russell Harmon, 52, with a lean build, silver hair, and piercing blue eyes, was among America's top architects. His firm, Harmon Designs, had crafted iconic structures in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. To him, architecture wasn't just a profession, it was a weapon. Buildings were his language, blueprints his arsenal. Now he was armed, but the battle ahead was of a different kind. 6 years prior, his life seemed picture perfect. A beautiful wife, Vanessa, a promising son, Nathaniel, and a career that was the envy of many. But cracks appeared when Vanessa chose to stand against him, aligning herself with Lawrence Paxton, his company's fiercest competitor. Russell's gaze shifted from the cityscape to his laptop on the counter. A recent email alert caught his attention. Surveillance update from Dominic. He quickly opened the folder, revealing images of Vanessa stepping out of Paxton's luxury Mercedes, entering a lake house with him and Nathaniel, his son, inside the same house. For a moment, Russell's fingers paused. Seeing Nathaniel's face evoked a familiar sting. Over the past 6 years, he'd monitored every move, every location, every tone, not out of love, but strategy. The phone rang. "Mr. Harmon, Thomas Westfield is here to see you." His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Send him in," Russell replied, closing the folder. Thomas Westfield, a towering 6 feet 2 inches former Navy officer turned security consultant, entered with his characteristic disciplined demeanor. "Confirmed," Thomas began. "Paxton contacted Diaz yesterday." Russell's face remained stoic, but a shadow deepened in his eyes. "So, they're moving forward," he said quietly. Money exchanged hands. "Our sources indicate they're planning something around Nathaniel's graduation next month." Taking a deep breath, Russell set his glass down. "Then we accelerate our timeline. Contact Simone. Tell her Protocol Chimera starts tonight." Thomas nodded. "That moves things up by 3 weeks. Are you sure you're ready?" "They forced my hand, Thomas." Russell turned back to the window. "They're planning to use my son against me. That's a mistake they won't live to regret." Once Thomas departed, Russell moved towards his study. Pressing a panel on the wall, a hidden safe opened, revealing a thick, leather-bound journal. This wasn't an architectural blueprint. It was a map of revenge. Inside were legal documents from Paxton's company, Vanessa's financial transactions, and Nathaniel's emotional triggers, all meticulously documented. He turned to a page titled, "Nathaniel's Loyalty, Variable." There was a time when Nathaniel was closest to him. But post-divorce, his allegiance shifted to Vanessa. Perhaps a mother's tears and a father's silence had confused the boy. But Russell believed blood remembers. And when the time comes, his son would return to him. His thoughts were interrupted by a call. Caller ID, Nathaniel. "Hey, Dad?" Nathaniel's voice was hesitant. "Hey, son," Russell responded warmly. "A rarity. Everything okay? I just wanted to make sure you're still coming to my graduation party next month." Russell paused. Was this genuine concern or a ploy? "Of course," he replied. "I wouldn't miss it." "Thanks. Mom's going overboard with the planning. You know how she gets—" "I do," Russell said, eyeing the phone. And I'll see you next week for dinner. Yeah, looking forward. Bye, Dad. The call ended, but Russell's mind raced. He sensed Nathaniel was hiding something, perhaps out of obligation, perhaps fear, but he wouldn't allow himself to be a pawn. He jotted in the journal, possibly compromised. Initiate surveillance at Lake House. Outside, the rain intensified. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, as if heralding an impending war. Russell's eyes fixed on the city. Within them burned a singular emotion: fire. A fire poised to cleanse everything. 6 years ago, that night was both the quietest and the loudest night of Russell Harmon's life, where a son built his foundation not from his parents' mistakes, but from their lessons. A silent justice, a powerful legacy. That evening, his home buzzed with celebration. Harmon Designs had just secured the contract for the Pacific Arts Center, the biggest cultural project on the West Coast. Governors, investors, and influential names from across the city lifted their glasses to toast his victory. Vanessa had spared no effort in hosting. Her silver dress, practiced smile, and strategic small talk were flawless. Vanessa was the face of Harmon. She had brokered deals without signing a single paper, just with presence and perfect diplomacy. But after the last guest left and the house fell silent, another face emerged, one not lit by chandeliers or caught in photographs. "I'll check on Nathaniel," Vanessa had said. Her voice carried less fatigue and more rehearsal. Then, just before heading upstairs, she looked at him and added, "Don't wait up." Russell poured himself another bourbon and tried to relive the victory in solitude. But somehow, it now felt heavier, like a shadow had settled over its shine. Around 1 a.m., unable to sleep, he began to walk the quiet hallway, his steps steady on the hardwood floors, like the very foundation of the home. That's when he noticed the light on in the study. It surprised him. He always shut everything down before bed. He opened the door slowly. What he saw made his breath catch. Vanessa, his wife, the woman who'd curated their home and managed the politics of his career, was leaning over his computer, copying files onto a USB drive. She didn't flinch when the door opened. Her fingers didn't pause. But her eyes rose, and the diplomatic smile she wore so often, it was gone. "What are you doing?" Russell asked. His voice was calm, but it held heat beneath the surface. "Just sending some party photos to my sister," she said. No hesitation, no shift in her gaze. "Those aren't photos, Vanessa. These are my design files." Russell stepped closer and gently pulled the USB drive from her hand. Silence. Then her eyes, once full of social grace, turned ice cold with honesty. "You wouldn't understand, Russell. It's just business." "Whose business?" "Lawrence Paxton's?" His name sliced through the air like a blade. Vanessa didn't lie. She lowered her head. "How long?" 3 years, she answered without pause. "And it's not just business, if that's what you're really asking." That sentence cracked something inside him. 3 years. While Russell was grinding 18-hour days in the office, Vanessa was not only involved with his biggest rival, but stealing blueprints to beat him with. "Get out," Russell said. His voice had turned steel. "This is my house too," she snapped back. "You have 30 minutes. Take what matters. Leave the rest. I'll burn it." "Don't threaten me, Russell. I've got everything, copies of the files. Lawrence already has your designs." "And Nathaniel?" She didn't answer. "Does he know his mother's a thief?" A slap, but Russell caught her wrist mid-air. 30 minutes, Vanessa. After that, I call the police." She didn't argue with his words, but her footsteps lost their composure. "You were nothing without me. My relationships, my connections, my smile, those built you. Otherwise, you'd still be designing strip malls in some dusty town." 19 minutes, Russell replied, as if she was no longer a person, just a deadline. She left, and with her went their son, Nathaniel. Russell didn't get angry. He didn't cry. What coursed through his veins that night wasn't blood. It was a plan. That very night, he made his first call to Thomas Westfield, the security consultant he knew through a client. And with that call, Protocol Chimera was set in motion. By the next day, every password had been changed. Vanessa's accounts were frozen. Legal papers were drafted against her. Every file from Paxton Development was scanned, gathering evidence. The divorce proceedings began swiftly, but they weren't easy. Vanessa accused Russell of emotional abuse in court, while her relationship with Lawrence was portrayed in the media as a new beginning. "Even after all that, I lost my son," Russell wrote in his journal. "But that pain? I embedded it into the foundation of every structure I designed." Within 6 months, Vanessa married Lawrence and moved into his lake house with Nathaniel. Nathaniel, who once watched football with Russell, now barely spoke to him over the phone. Russell never forced him, never tried to win him back or take him away. But one thing he never stopped was surveillance. Every class, every dorm transfer, every message. Nothing escaped his watchful eye. Paxton Development attempted to seize the Art Center project, but Russell outmaneuvered them by presenting evidence to the committee that the designs had been stolen. Many doors closed, those that had once opened because of Vanessa. But Russell never looked outward. He crafted a new blueprint within, a design that built not just structures, but justice. His son, Nathaniel, was now in the hands of Lawrence and Vanessa. But he believed blood remembers. Like any architect, Russell waited patiently. And now, 6 years later, when the party invitation arrived at his doorstep, he didn't just see a card. He read between the lines. Because he knew this wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. And that was the moment when trust, pain, and the plan all took a new turn. Nathaniel Harmon's fingers traced the heavy cardstock of his master's graduation party invitation. The date, location, and a formal message. "You are cordially invited," were embossed in gold lettering. But each time he read it, the weight of the paper seemed to grow heavier in his hands. This wasn't just an invitation. It was a message, a spider's web in which he felt ensnared. His mother, Vanessa Paxton, had insisted he deliver it personally. "Your father might miss it in the mail. We want to ensure he comes. After all, it's a celebration of your success," she had said with a gracious smile that now felt more conspiratorial than sincere to Nathaniel. He knew his mother wanted his father to attend. But why? That was the question he couldn't answer. And now, as he navigated through New York's towering skyscrapers toward his father's penthouse, his heart pounded with an unfamiliar rhythm. The doorman greeted him with a nod. "Mr. Harmon is expecting you, sir." In the elevator, memories flooded back. Those Sundays as a child, having breakfast with his father, trying to decipher the lines in architectural sketchbooks. Memories now buried under his mother's narratives. Your father never understood balance. He was either consumed by work or trying to control everything. Vanessa's words echoed in his mind. But now, standing at the door, greeted by his father, something felt different, like fragments trying to realign. "You look tired," Russell remarked, leading him into the living room where a light lunch was set. "Finals," Nathaniel murmured, placing the invitation on the table. "Mom wanted to make sure you got this in person." Russell picked up the card, examining it closely. "I already received this. You sent it before." "Mom insisted," Nathaniel replied, avoiding eye contact. Moments passed in silence as they ate. Russell observing his son, noting the untouched food on his plate. "You're hiding something," he finally said. Nathaniel looked up, a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. He was facing a father who never missed half-truths. He always knew. Nothing. Just academic pressure. And? Russell prompted, his tone calm yet direct. Just that. Finals, arrangements, mom's over-involvement. He blurted out too quickly. Russell set his fork down. Look, son, I don't know what your mother has told you about me, and I'm not here to defend myself. But if you ever feel fear, pressure, or confusion, just remember who has never lied to you. Nathaniel's throat felt dry. He sipped water, his mind swirling with questions. What should I say? What should I withhold? Whose safety matters more, mom's or the truth? That night, the echoes of Lawrence and Vanessa's argument still haunted him. We can't risk him flipping to Russell. He's still young, still impressionable. Then we tighten the plan. Graduation is our window. And a stranger, the man who had never spoken to him before, had entered Lawrence's study. There was an unsettling aura about him. Ever feel scared, son? The man had asked. Who are you? Nathaniel had responded. Just a friend. Your mother's friend. Since that night, Nathaniel's heart had been restless. But now, in his father's home, he felt a semblance of safety. Thanks, Dad, he said softly. Your master's in environmental engineering at 22, Russell noted. That's no small feat. I'm proud of you. It was a simple line, but within Nathaniel something began to melt, like the first raindrop on a stone. Dinner ended. Russell walked Nathaniel to the door. You know you can come here anytime, right? Your room's still here. Nathaniel nodded. They both knew he hadn't stayed a single night since the divorce. Mom wants help with the decorations, so I should head out. Russell placed a hand on his shoulder as he opened the door. If you ever feel unsafe, for any reason, call me, day or night, doesn't matter. The weight in those words made Nathaniel look up, startled. Why would I feel unsafe? He asked. Russell tried to smile. Just a father's concern. In the elevator, Nathaniel's heartbeat raced. He looked at his reflection but couldn't recognize his own face. He knew. His father knew something. Probably a lot. And when he got home and his mother asked, How was your father? Nathaniel lied. Same as always, busy, analytical, distant. But his words lacked conviction. His mother watched him closely, as if she understood everything. Just remember this, son, Vanessa said. Your father isn't who he seems. And when he smiles, that's when he's most dangerous. That same night, Nathaniel messaged his college roommate. Need to crash at your place tomorrow, don't tell anyone. He needed time. To think, to understand, maybe. To decide. The next morning, sunlight danced on the penthouse windows, but inside, the air still felt as heavy as rain. Russell Harmon sat at his laptop, eyes fixed on the screen, mind stuck on his son's expressions from the night before. Nathaniel hadn't looked afraid, but there was something deep in his silence. Not just guilt or confusion, but knowledge. He hadn't just come to visit. He had brought a message. Russell thought like the architect he'd always been. When a wall is damp, the problem isn't always on the outside. Sometimes it's a broken pipeline within. That's when he noticed the invitation card sitting innocently at the edge of the table. He picked it up and examined it closely. Everything looked normal. Gold embossing, thick cardstock, perfect design. But the lower right corner felt heavier. He grabbed a letter opener and carefully slit the corner open. Inside was a tiny rice grain-sized device, a tracking bug. He took a long breath, then placed the bug inside a small lead-lined box, one that blocked all signals. Amateurs, he muttered, before activating Chimera Protocol Phase 1 on his home system. Every surveillance node in and around the penthouse switched to maximum sensitivity. He messaged Thomas. They're getting sloppy. Bring Simone for dinner. 7 p.m. That evening, Thomas and Simone arrived. There were no candles on the table, no music playing, This wasn't dinner. It was strategy. Simone, focused and quietly sharp, showed files on her tablet. 7 surveillance nodes are now active inside the lake house. Kitchen, study, Lawrence's office, and main hall, all bugged. We've recorded 4 weeks of conversation. Any external contact confirmed? Russell asked. Yes, Thomas said. A man named Felix Diaz, former military, now freelance hitman, active in Colombia, Ukraine, and the Philippines. Spotted at the lake house 3 days ago. Simone showed a photo. Diaz on the patio, sitting with Vanessa and Lawrence. Any contact with Nathaniel? Indirect, Simone replied. Based on our analysis, Diaz plans to use Nathaniel as psychological bait. The real target is you. Russell's face hardened. He said nothing. He opened his journal and wrote, Nathaniel, compromised but redeemable. Extraction necessary. So what's the next move? Thomas asked. He needs to be extracted safely, Russell said. But before that, we need to make him understand what kind of game he's been made a pawn in, without scaring him and without pushing him away. Simone nodded. I'll approach him subtly, maybe a casual check-in around campus. And Diaz? Thomas asked. Let him think I'm coming in blind, Russell said. I want him to overcommit. That'll be his biggest mistake. The next day, Simone approached Nathaniel on Yale's New Haven campus. He was sitting outside the library, scribbling in his notes, when she walked up. Professor Wilson sends his regards, she said. The coded line Russell's team used to initiate contact. Nathaniel froze. Who are you? I'm here on behalf of your father. You're being followed, Nathaniel, right now. His face turned pale. He glanced around. There was a black SUV parked in the distance. Come with me, now. As part of the backup plan, Simone led him through a service door inside the mall and into a van, where Russell Harmon was already seated. Dad? Are you hurt? Russell asked immediately. No. But what is happening? Lawrence and your mother hired Diaz to eliminate me, and you were the bait, Russell said plainly. Nathaniel nearly collapsed. He gripped the seat tightly. I overheard some things, but I never imagined. Tell me everything you heard. Nathaniel recounted it all, the conversation in Lawrence's study, the phrase collateral damage, and the way his mother had smiled that night, like poison behind her teeth. Russell remained calm, but his eyes took on a renewed intensity. Now you understand, he said, what you've been caught in the middle of. What do I do? First, stay away. If your mother suspects you're turning against them, Diaz will eliminate you too. Where will I go? Somewhere safe. Simone will stay with you. 3 weeks, that's all I need. After that, it'll be over. Nathaniel was silent. Do you trust me, son? Russell asked. Nathaniel didn't speak. He simply nodded. That's enough. For now, Russell said. As the van turned toward a secure helipad, Russell activated Phase 2 of the Chimera protocol on his phone. The trap was halfway set. Now came the part where he'd watch them get tangled in it and pull his son out from their grip. Inside the lake house study, the air felt stale. The wooden walls, curated artwork, and crystal glasses looked the same. But the room didn't feel like a vision board anymore. It felt like a war room. Lawrence Paxton, impeccably dressed but with tired eyes, paced in circles. His glass was half full, but his mind felt empty. Are you sure Diaz is tracking Nathaniel? He finally asked. Vanessa, sitting nearby, was swinging her foot slowly, like her anxiety had moved from her throat to her ankles. He said yes, but it's been 2 days, no updates. Russell disappeared for 4 hours yesterday, Lawrence added. There were blind spots in his penthouse surveillance. Maybe he's just getting sloppy, Vanessa offered, though her voice betrayed uncertainty. Russell? Sloppy? Lawrence laughed bitterly, downing his whiskey. This is the man who once traced a zoning officer's divorce just to block a vote. That man doesn't sneeze without calculating the outcome. Vanessa stood and walked to the window. The lake shimmered silently, but it didn't look peaceful anymore. It looked like conspiracy made liquid. You think he recorded us? Possibly, Lawrence replied. So let's assume he has everything. Then it's time to move. Graduation isn't a celebration anymore. It's the execution, Vanessa said. Her voice had turned into a blade. That night, Diaz and his team were meeting in a rented section of a hotel ballroom. Maps were spread out across the table, along with camera schematics and entry-exit points. This wasn't a cartel mission anymore, but a murder plot at a family gathering. Russell is still unaware, Diaz said. His voice held the same cold stillness as the moment before a bullet is fired. But the son, he's disappeared. We assume he's under protection. Plan B? Asked a young man, a former Navy SEAL. On graduation day, Harmon will show up. We'll set up a confrontation at the boathouse. If he cooperates, well and good. If not, an accident on the lake dock. Multiple casualties. Media distraction. Collateral damage? Another asked. Acceptable. The mission is Russell. Diaz had already given Lawrence and Vanessa his word. It will be clean, swift, and untraceable. But now things didn't feel so clean anymore. At the lake house the next day, Vanessa and Lawrence met again in the study. Diaz is bringing in 2 more men, Lawrence said. One's a sniper, the other a tech disruptor. No signals will leave the boathouse. You're sure we're doing the right thing? Vanessa's voice was low, like a warning rising from the edge of a cliff. Backing out now means defeat, Lawrence said. Russell's already frozen our accounts. The press is starting to whisper. Environmental frauds, land disputes, insider permits. It could all blow up. So we're going to kill a boy's father. On his graduation day? Nathaniel isn't with us anymore. He's gone. His silence proves it. If Diaz traces him, fine. If not, the plan goes on. Vanessa went silent, but her eyes had already begun to stir. Sometimes betrayal runs so deep that there's no path left to turn back. That evening, Diaz ran recon on the boathouse. The structure was simple, open plan. Several access points, but Diaz picked the rear deck. If the confrontation doesn't go well, we create the distraction from here. Fake explosion under the boat dock. Sniper positioning was finalized. One-time signal jammers were placed at all 4 corners of the lawn. The lake house was now a fortress. Not to defend, but to strike. And then, Diaz's encrypted phone buzzed. Russell Harmon has activated mobile switch node. GPS scrambled, Diaz's fingers froze for a moment. Why is he disappearing? Inside the lake house surveillance room, a flicker of panic. Where is he going? Unknown. But he took Thomas Westfield with him. That's never a casual trip. Maybe he's planning a counterstrike? Vanessa asked. Let him come, Lawrence said. We're ready. But the room had another silence too. The kind that settles when everyone knows something is about to go very wrong, but no one wants to say it. Back at the penthouse, Russell Harmon opened a file in his surveillance lab. Project Echo, full digital clone of Paxton Systems. It contained every email from Lawrence, every transaction by Vanessa, and even the payment trail to Diaz. He wasn't an architect anymore. He was a prosecutor, and this was his courtroom. He looked at Thomas. It's time they face the shadow they created. Then he pressed one button, into the same system Diaz's team was using. At the lake house, Diaz and his team saw the same image appear on every screen. A clean, white architectural blueprint. A trapdoor layout. 3 seconds later, the screen went black. For the first time, Diaz felt a cold breeze across his neck. Inside the lake house, Lawrence yelled, "What the hell was that?" Vanessa, looking at her phone, said, "Russell just sent something." He's watching us, listening, and maybe waiting, Vanessa said, her voice finally holding fear. This was no longer a battle of bullets. It was a battle of the mind. And Diaz, Lawrence, and Vanessa weren't up against a man playing on their field. They were playing on his. At the lake house gate, security guards were on edge. It was around 11 a.m., and preparations for the graduation party were in full swing. White tents were up, violins rehearsed softly near the water, and catering staff were plating hors d'oeuvres in the kitchen. But then something unusual made the head of security furrow his brow. 5 luxury cars arrived in a convoy, unannounced. The people stepping out didn't look like guests. No smiles, no gift bags, just folders, papers, and history. "Names, please?" the guard asked. An elderly man stepped forward slowly, leaning on a cane. "We received personal invitations," he said, "sent by the Harmon Legal Group." "One moment," the guard said, and radioed Lawrence for confirmation. Inside the lake house, Lawrence was adjusting his black suit in front of the mirror when the voice came through his earpiece. "5 guests at the gate, not on the list. One says he's from the O'Reilly family, the former landowners of the Oceanside project." Lawrence's face went pale. "What?" he snapped. "Shit." He called Diaz immediately. "Did you approve any press today?" "No," Diaz replied. "Why?" "Because our ghosts just walked through the front gate." Vanessa was across the lawn, chatting and smiling, her perfect mask, the polished presentation. But she froze as Lawrence rushed to her side, whispering fast. "They're here. The people from the resort deal. O'Reilly, the inspector, the journalist." Vanessa's face lost all color. How? They were paid off. Or silenced. Apparently Russell kept receipts. And then the 5 figures entered the lawn. First, John O'Reilly, the old farmer in a crisp white suit whose land had once been targeted for the Oceanside resort. Beside him, his daughter Lila Hayes, a former journalist who'd written the suppressed exposé titled Bribes Underwater. Third, Robert Emerson, the environmental inspector who once gave Paxton's resort a clean report, now holding signed documents and older assessments. Fourth, Anthony Brewer, the city council member ousted in 2018, now carrying proof his vote had been influenced. And fifth, Sally Donovan, Lawrence's former assistant who'd quietly left her job a year ago. Now she was a whistleblower for the Harmon team. Cameras started rolling. The mainstream media hadn't been alerted, but a drone hovered silently above, streaming everything. "Excuse me," Lawrence barked. "You are trespassing. This is a private event." O'Reilly leaned on his cane and replied, "Not if I was invited." "Mr. Harmon sent these." He held up the cards. "Get out now." Diaz's men shifted into alert positions. Lila tapped her smartwatch. "We're live, Mr. Paxton. Say hello to 30,000 viewers." Vanessa grabbed Lawrence's arm. "Let them in. We can't afford a scene, not with this many eyes watching." Inside, the guests grew uneasy. Who are those people? Were they even invited? And then, the violins stopped. The ghosts had entered. Not with chance, not with outrage, but with silence. With the weight of papers. With stares sharper than any camera. They didn't eat. They didn't mingle. They simply watched. And their watching was louder than any confrontation. Meanwhile, Diaz got an update. Electronic ping detected. Hidden device active, possibly live streaming. "Shut it down," he yelled. But it was too late. Every screen in the lake house flashed the same line. "Truth will out." Then, one by one, a projector began displaying documents. Fake foreclosure files from O'Reilly's land. Clean environmental reports signed by Robert Emerson. Lawrence's offshore bank transactions. Vanessa's lobby meeting schedules. And Diaz's contract file. Page 17, target, Russell Harmon. Date, May 22nd. All the guests had fallen into stunned silence. The caterers, violinist, and security staff. Every eye was now fixed on the screen. Lawrence pulled the projector, yanked it down, but the data didn't stop. From somewhere behind the draped stage, Agent Colin Reed's voice echoed. "This is the FBI. We are initiating a public interest protocol under witness protection orders. Please remain calm." Russell Harmon, who hadn't arrived at the party until now, slowly emerged from the crowd. He was dressed in a suit, but his walk wasn't that of a spy. It was of a man who owned every brick in the building. "Thank you all for attending my son's graduation celebration," he said. "Some people thought this would be the end. For me, for my legacy. Turns out, it's just the beginning." The party wasn't over now. The real stage had just opened, and the voices that had stayed silent for years were finally echoing. The violin still hummed gently across the lake house lawn, but now its sweetness carried a cold, unfamiliar undertone. Under the white tents, people whispered nervously, "Did you see the screen? The FBI? Charges on Paxton?" Every face had turned alert, cautious, but Lawrence Paxton hadn't lost his smile. He was one of those men who never removed their mask until their back hit the wall. "Maintain order," he whispered to Vanessa. "Russell's not here yet. We need to keep calm." "What if he figured out our plan?" Vanessa asked, her voice missing the balance that usually made her shine in public. She was tired, inside and out. It felt like everything was slipping through her fingers. "We still have Diaz," Lawrence reminded her, "and backup. Everything will go exactly as planned." At exactly 1 p.m., Russell Harmon's car arrived at the main gate. He wasn't alone. Beside him sat his longtime ally, Thomas Westfield, disguised at the party as general security but watching, listening, recording everything. The guard at the gate asked for ID, checked the card, and when he saw the name Russell Harmon, he tapped his earpiece and reported to Lawrence. "He's here. Let him in," Lawrence said. His voice was trembling, but he tried to keep control. Inside the lake house, down by the wooden boathouse on the water's edge, renovations had supposedly been underway for months. But in truth, Diaz's team had turned it into a trap zone. 4 cameras, 2 sound dampeners, a collapsible silenced sniper, and rigged explosives under the dock for a staged accident. The plan was simple. As soon as Russell separated from Nathaniel for a private chat, Diaz and his team would execute the incident. But Nathaniel wasn't even at the party. "Where's the guest of honor?" Russell asked Lawrence as the two of them stood face to face for a formal greeting. "Delayed at the university, some last-minute errands. Vanessa went to pick him up," Lawrence replied with the same ease he once used to manipulate a land deal 5 years ago. "Shame," Russell smiled. "I was hoping to see him first." "Of course. He'll be here shortly. Meanwhile, why don't we take a walk? By the lake. For old time's sake?" Russell nodded, like he was ready for this walk down memory lane. They strolled slowly toward the lake. From a distance, Thomas watched and spoke into his earpiece, alerting Simone. "Phase Alpha initiated. Escort to boathouse confirmed." Inside the boathouse, Diaz was already waiting, concealed with 2 men. "Mr. Harmon?" he said coldly. "Ah, Mr. Diaz. Finally putting a face to the payments, I assume?" Russell replied. "Straight to the point," Diaz muttered. "You always were." Russell's eyes moved around the room. They didn't stop on anything, but they missed nothing. 2 armed operatives, a fake panel on the wall, a sniper platform just overhead. "Where is Nathaniel?" Diaz asked. "He's not here," Russell replied, his voice cold. "What do you mean?" "He was never part of this game," Russell said. "You just didn't realize the board changed 3 weeks ago." Suddenly, Diaz heard his team's voice in his earpiece. "Sir, external interference detected. Feed corrupted." "What's happening?" Diaz barked. The same thing that's happening to your accounts, your employer's shell companies, and your immigration cover files, Russell said, now turning fully toward him. Because right now, Diaz, this entire conversation is being streamed live to the FBI, the district attorney's office, and 3 independent journalists. As Diaz reached for his weapon, a small device dropped from the ceiling. An EMP grenade. Thump. Every electronic system in the boathouse went dead. "Shall we step outside now?" Russell asked. "Or would you prefer the agents come in and drag you out?" At that very moment, 3 FBI vehicles, 2 black SUVs, and a commercial news drone landed on the lawn outside the lake house. The crowd didn't scream. It simply parted in stunned silence. FBI agents escorted Diaz and his team out of the boathouse, in handcuffs. Lawrence and Vanessa looked stunned. No longer party hosts, but fallen characters from a collapsing empire. "Russell!" Lawrence shouted. "You son of a—" "Careful," Russell said calmly. "You're still being recorded." And as the cameras captured Diaz in cuffs, Vanessa's wilting smile, and Lawrence's scorched confidence, for the first time, Russell Harmon exhaled deeply. "Where's Nathaniel?" one of the agents asked. "Safe," Russell replied. "Exactly where he needs to be." The hunted had now become the hunter. The trap had been set, and the first snare had already snapped shut. As the sound of FBI vehicles echoed through the lake house, Vanessa Paxton quietly slipped away from the doorway. Lawrence's shouting, Diaz's hands hanging in cuffs, Russell's calm, unshaken stride. All of it was now behind her. One word kept ringing in her mind. Nathaniel. Somewhere inside her, a part still believed this wasn't defeat, just a turning point. And if there was one final move left, it was her son. She asked a female agent for permission to use the restroom. The agent followed her. But as soon as the door shut, Vanessa pulled a thin steel rod from the heel of her stiletto and struck the agent hard across the temple. Thwack! The agent collapsed. Vanessa took her badge, weapon, and phone, then slipped out the bathroom window just as easily as she had once crafted fake exit plans for Lawrence's old real estate scams. For the next 20 minutes, no camera had eyes on her. Using old tracking logs from Russell's car, which she had secretly copied long ago, she located the only place her son could be. The hunting cabin, Russell's old retreat, hidden by the lake, far from the city, soaked in memory. 3 hours later, by the time Russell got the message, it was too late. A text came from an unlisted number. "Like father, like son. Let's see how well you taught him to swim." Attached was a photo. Nathaniel, unconscious, dumped in the back of a car. Another image. Simone, bloodied, eyes closed. Russell couldn't breathe. It was the moment when the architect in him didn't reach for plans. He let out a scream, human and raw. "Thomas," he barked into the phone. "She's taken him." From the Red Line helipad, a chopper lifted off immediately. Destination: Russell's old hunting cabin. This wasn't a rookie flying the bird. Thomas himself was in the cockpit. Russell, wearing a tactical vest, stared at a photo of his son. "She's not running," he muttered. "She's sending a message. This is personal." When they reached the cabin, the area seemed quiet. But as they got closer, they spotted a small boat tied to the dock by the lake. "She's inside," Russell said. "I'm going in. You come from the back. 10 minutes. After that, go in. No matter what." Inside the cabin, Vanessa had tied Nathaniel to a chair. Simone lay nearby, still alive, but injured. Vanessa held a Glock 17, stolen from the downed FBI agent. Russell opened the door slowly, hands raised. "I came alone." "You always think you've figured it all out," Vanessa said, her voice cracking. "But this is beyond you. Where's Nathaniel?" "Safe? For now." "Why are you doing this, Vanessa?" You had everything, and you burned it all down. You stole it, she screamed. You turned my life into a stack of legal documents. I didn't take anything from you, Russell said calmly. You lost yourself to greed, to delusion. Shut up. She raised the revolver to his chest. Your son saw you, Vanessa, Russell said softly. He's seen what his mother has become. And that's what really terrifies you. Not me. Vanessa's eyes filled, but there was no regret in them. Only fury. He was my son. Mine. He's his own man now. Suddenly, Nathaniel's eyes snapped open. He saw it, his mother, armed. His father, standing calm in the line of fire. Then, with a jolt of his legs, he tipped the chair. It was light. It fell. Vanessa flinched. Russell moved. Bang! A shot rang out, into the air. They both stumbled. And just then, Simone's ankle holster spilled the backup gun within Nathaniel's reach. He grabbed it, and for the first time, he aimed it at his mother. Drop it, Mom. Baby. Please. Vanessa's voice felt like it was coming from another world. I was trying to protect you. You were about to kill Dad. Because he took everything. No, you did. Bang. The bullet hit Vanessa in the shoulder. She collapsed to the floor, crying, muttering. Call medevac, Russell said into his comm as Thomas rushed in. Russell turned to his son. The innocence in Nathaniel's eyes was gone. Are you okay? She was going to kill you. You saved me. A helicopter touched down by the lake. FBI medics loaded Vanessa onto a stretcher. Unconscious, groaning in pain, still whispering deliriously. He turned him against me. Russell turned my baby. Russell held Nathaniel's hand. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Nathaniel nodded slowly. His face was no longer soft. It was stone, unshaken and uncertain, like the future itself. 3 months had passed. From the heights of New York, the city that once served as Russell Harmon's canvas of ambition now resembled a tranquil river. No turbulence, no haste, just flow. His penthouse remained unchanged, but the two individuals residing within had transformed. Russell Harmon, the architect who lost a wife, witnessed the fall of an empire, and from its ashes forged his own justice. And Nathaniel Harmon, his son, who had wounded his mother and rebuilt his shattered trust with a newfound backbone. Books were scattered across the sofa. Nathaniel was now preparing for his PhD in environmental engineering. Each page, each thesis, seemed to be a fragment of his soul. Professor Wilson called again. Nathaniel said casually, "He still wants me on the Maryland Bay project." Russell, gazing out the window, turned slowly. "Will you consider it?" "Maybe. But their company's ethical record is a bit shaky. I can't work in a place where sustainability is just a slogan." As he said this, Russell noticed something on his face. The same inner strength, the same moral spine that he once possessed. Russell retrieved a folder from his desk drawer and handed it to Nathaniel. "Look at this." Nathaniel opened it. Oceanside Project. Redevelopment proposal. But it wasn't a resort. It was something entirely different. Marine Conservation Research Hub, including student housing, renewable energy systems, and zero-waste infrastructure. "What is this?" Nathaniel asked. "Same land," Russell said. "Same location. Different soul. We're buying it. The auction is next month. I want you to be its co-director." Nathaniel's hands didn't tremble, but his eyes sparkled. "You want to build something? With me?" "I want us to build something that outlives both of us." "Poetic justice?" Nathaniel asked. "Maybe," Russell smiled. "Maybe legacy." After that party, Lawrence Paxton faced charges of real estate fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and tax evasion. His company went into receivership. A 20-year sentence is likely. Vanessa, hospitalized, partially paralyzed after a stroke. The court declared her mentally unstable. No trial ensued, but Nathaniel refused to meet her. "Have you visited her?" Russell once asked. "No," Nathaniel replied in a dry tone. "Don't let anger define you," Russell said. "It's not anger," he replied. "It's clarity." Now they worked together. The penthouse's one room had transformed from a war room to a blueprint room. Occasionally, Thomas and Simone would join, and in their presence, Russell would explain every strategy to Nathaniel: funding, oversight, political mapping, security protocol. "Why are you showing me all this?" Nathaniel once asked. "Because someday it'll all be yours, and I want you to be better than I was." Better in what way? Less driven by revenge, more by purpose. 3 days later, Russell received a call from Agent Reed. "Lawrence wants to meet you. Says he has details about Vanessa's offshore accounts." Russell took a long pause. "Let's listen. One last time." In that austere prison room, Lawrence was no longer the man who had stolen designs. His hair had turned white. His voice was weary. "You won, Russell," he said. "But at what cost?" "Not for you to ask," Russell replied. "Vanessa lost her mind. Your son lost his innocence, and you lost your soul. Or maybe," Russell leaned in, "I simply reclaimed it, piece by piece." As he exited the room, Nathaniel was waiting in the car. "Did he offer anything useful?" he asked. "Attempted manipulation, thinly veiled guilt, and yes, some account codes. Are you going to use them?" "Only to end what he started." On the way home, Nathaniel asked, "Do you think I'm becoming like you?" Russell pondered for a moment. "Parts of you, yes, but with more compassion." "Good," Nathaniel said, "because I don't just want to fight ghosts. I want to build something beautiful." "Then let's begin." 3 weeks later, the Oceanside auction took place, and the Harmon Conservation Trust acquired the land. Russell didn't attend the press conference. Instead, Nathaniel stood, full of confidence. "Where corruption once stood, we will now build research. Where deception thrived, we will nurture transparency." He looked towards the cameras. "And yes, my name is Nathaniel Harmon, son of an architect. But today, I lay the foundation, not of buildings, but of trust." In the evening on the penthouse balcony, Russell and Nathaniel stood together. "Storm's coming," Russell said. "Let it come," Nathaniel replied. "We've survived worse." Russell placed his hand on his shoulder. "Like father, like son." Nathaniel smiled, but there was something else in his eyes. Number like a man shaped by truth, not just blood. And thus concludes a story where the light of legacy emerged from the fire of vengeance, where a son built his foundation not from his parents' mistakes, but from their lessons. A silent justice, a powerful legacy.